In one of the most earth-shattering announcements of 2026, President Donald Trump has ordered a full naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The announcement sent immediate shockwaves across global financial markets, coming on Sunday, April 12, 2026, dramatically changing the entire trajectory of this war. Using his Truth Social platform, Trump declared the United States Navy would immediately begin blockading all ships entering or leaving the strategic strait. He also ordered the U.S. Navy to intercept every vessel in international waters that had paid any form of toll directly to Iran. Trump warned Iran directly, stating that any Iranian forces who fire at American ships or peaceful vessels would be, quote, blown to hell. To understand what is happening today, we must first go back to February 28, 2026, when America and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. That coordinated operation involved American and Israeli airstrikes targeting Iran's military installations, nuclear development sites, and senior Iranian leadership figures. The strikes killed Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, triggering a massive Iranian retaliation with missile and drone attacks across the entire region. Iran retaliated by attacking U.S. military bases in the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain, while simultaneously shutting down the Strait of Hormuz to all traffic. Major shipping companies, including Maersk, CMA CGM, and Hapag-Lloyd, immediately suspended all transit operations through the strait, creating an unprecedented global energy catastrophe. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman, providing the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, measuring just 21 miles at its narrowest point. Before this crisis, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas and 25% of all global seaborne oil trade passed through the strait annually. The International Energy Agency described the closure of the strait as the largest supply disruption in the entire recorded history of the global oil market. Countries like China, India, Japan, and South Korea faced the most exposure, with 84% of all Hormuz crude oil exports destined for Asian markets in 2024. Since the conflict began, crude oil prices surged past $100 per barrel on multiple occasions, devastating global consumers and economies worldwide. Analysts at major Wall Street institutions began warning that oil prices could potentially surge to an unprecedented and catastrophic $200 per barrel. The strait also transits roughly 45% of the world's global sulfur exports, which are absolutely critical for fertilizer production and industrial metal refining processes. In a last-ditch attempt to end the crisis, Iran agreed to a temporary ceasefire announced on April 8, 2026, which was supposed to involve reopening the strait. However, even during the ceasefire, Iran continued restricting the number of ships crossing the strait while charging passing vessels enormous and unauthorized toll fees. Formal face-to-face peace negotiations were then held in Islamabad, Pakistan, with Vice President J.D. Vance leading the U.S. delegation through marathon negotiating sessions. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner also participated as key American team members during what became one of the most consequential diplomatic summits in history. The U.S. and Iranian negotiating teams met for more than 21 consecutive hours during the historic face-to-face summit held in Islamabad over that critical weekend. Iran's demands at the table included control of the Strait of Hormuz, payment of war reparations, and a ceasefire across the entire region, including Lebanon. Tehran also demanded the release of all its frozen overseas assets as a non-negotiable precondition before any formal peace framework could actually be agreed upon. But the single issue America could not and would not compromise on was Iran's nuclear ambitions, and that one sticking point destroyed everything. Trump declared on Truth Social that the talks reached agreement on most points, but broke down entirely on the one issue that mattered most: Iran's nuclear program. Vance emphasized after the failed talks that the U.S. urgently needs a firm commitment that Iran will not seek to develop a nuclear weapon going forward. Vice President Vance told reporters that the Iranians had chosen not to accept America's terms, effectively and conclusively ending all direct face-to-face negotiation sessions. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf insisted Tehran entered negotiations in good faith, but accused the U.S. of failing to earn the Iranian delegation's trust. Within hours of the talks collapsing, Trump made his bombshell blockade announcement on Truth Social, stunning every world government, military analyst, and global energy market simultaneously. According to sources briefed on the situation, Trump had been actively discussing the blockade option with his team for several days as a contingency plan if talks failed. The blockade announcement was immediately described by military officials as one of the most significant U.S. naval actions since the height of the Cold War era. Trump's stated goal is clear: to strip Iran completely of its leverage by denying Tehran any financial benefit whatsoever from its stranglehold over the strait. Trump additionally ordered the U.S. Navy to begin actively destroying the deadly mines that Iran reportedly laid throughout the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz waterway. U.S. warships had already crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday in a mine-clearing mission, which Iran controversially and angrily described as a blatant ceasefire violation. During a Fox News interview, Trump escalated his rhetoric dramatically, claiming he could destroy Iran's entire energy grid and electrical generating plants within a single hour. He told Fox News that this situation will be all or none. No nation receives special treatment or preferential access through the Strait of Hormuz moving forward. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had already imposed a de facto toll booth regime in the strait, requiring ships to submit documentation, obtain clearance codes, and accept IRGC-escorted passage. Lloyd's List intelligence analysts confirmed that at least 2 vessels had already paid passage fees to Iran in Chinese yuan to guarantee safe transit through the strait. Trump described Iran's toll system as outright world extortion, vowing that no vessel paying Iran's illegal tolls would have safe passage anywhere on the international high seas. Trump stated he would not allow Iran to make money by selling oil to nations it favors, while blocking others or extorting ships for unauthorized passage tolls. The blockade could put the United States on a direct collision course with China and India, as Chinese and Indian-flagged ships have been among the few still transiting it. Trump had previously warned Chinese President Xi Jinping that an upcoming summit could be at risk if Beijing refuses to help the U.S. secure the Strait of Hormuz. Europe draws 12 to 14% of its total LNG supply from Qatar through the strait, making the continent dangerously exposed to escalating and prolonged energy shortages. The economic impact of this war has already echoed the 1970s energy crisis through acute supply shortages, currency volatility, inflation, and heightened risks of global stagflation. Kuwait and Iraq were among the first Gulf nations to begin curtailing oil production in early March, after their local storage facilities rapidly filled to maximum capacity. Houthi-controlled Yemen also resumed attacks on commercial Red Sea shipping, forcing cargo vessels to reroute entirely around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to transit times. The rerouting dramatically increased global freight costs, placing enormous and unprecedented inflationary pressure on consumers and businesses across virtually every corner of the planet. U.S. gas prices hit $4 per gallon by the end of March 2026, representing a staggering 30% surge driven entirely by the Hormuz crisis. Bloomberg economics data revealed that U.S. consumer price inflation surged to 3.4% by March 2026, with sharply rising fuel costs identified as the primary economic driver. Gulf states, which rely on the strait for over 80% of their caloric food imports, faced a severe grocery supply emergency with consumer prices spiking up to 120%. Qatar Energy, the world's largest liquefied natural gas exporter, was forced to declare force majeure on all of its global exports following the complete strait closure. Republican Congressman Byron Donalds publicly backed Trump's blockade decision, arguing the president is making the right strategic move to establish American control over the waterway. Donalds said on NBC News that Trump's true goal is opening the strait to free international trade, not permanently closing it to all shipping indefinitely. Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, publicly questioned Trump's blockade logic during an appearance on CNN's State of the Union. Warner questioned how blockading the strait would push Iran to open it, suggesting the move appeared strategically counterproductive to America's stated ultimate diplomatic and security objectives. Russia and China had already moved to block a United Nations Security Council resolution designed to protect commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz on April 7th. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps responded to Trump's declaration defiantly, insisting the Strait of Hormuz remains open for civilian vessels, while threatening that military ships would be dealt with severely. The IRGC issued a chilling statement declaring that any enemy making the wrong move in the strait would become trapped in a deadly and inescapable vortex. Al Jazeera's correspondent reporting from Tehran confirmed that Iran views controlling the Strait of Hormuz as its single most powerful bargaining chip throughout this entire escalating crisis. Tonight, the world stands at what many military experts and geopolitical analysts are calling the most dangerous global precipice since the height of the Cold War. The question the entire planet is now urgently asking is whether Iran will back down against America's most powerful and sweeping naval blockade in modern history, or will this standoff spiral further into what many around the world genuinely fear could become a catastrophic and all-out Third World War between major powers? The world is watching. The stakes could not possibly be higher. Stay locked to this channel for continuous, up-to-the-minute breaking coverage of this rapidly evolving global crisis.